I got that animal ambition. I got that animal ambition. I got that.
What's up, y'all? Smoak what's good? In this video, I'm gonna be watching 10 wrestlers you didn't know wore a mask by Cultaholic Wrestling.
Wrestling masks are, more often than not, pretty ruddy cool. Some of the very best wrestlers in the history of the business have worn masks, with a few going their whole careers without ever showing their faces in public. For other wrestlers, wearing a mask was something that was only temporary for reasons ranging from it being a storyline necessity to a genuine need to conceal their identity from the public. Whatever the reason, their time in disguise ended up being nothing more than a career footnote. I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are 10 wrestlers you didn't know wore masks. Join us. Number 10, the Hardy Boys. In the years before they signed their official WWE developmental deals, Matt and Jeff Hardy could regularly be found doing job duty for the bona fide WWE stars on TV. They typically went by their real names, whether in singles or tag action, but on one particular occasion, they tried something very different. At the September 24th, 1996 Superstars taping, Matt and Jeff put on masks and outfits they had used in different indie promotions and wrestled as the Jinx Brothers. Supposedly hailing from Australia, Ingus, Jeff, and Wildo, Matt, battled the illustrious duo of the Grimm Twins, aka the Harris Brothers.
I wonder why
According
Australia.
to Matt, WWE was still figuring out just what to do with the young Hardys and asked them to dress up so they could take a look. It says a lot about their place at the time that they quickly did the favors for Jared and Jason Grimm. It also says a lot about the impression they made with the new gimmick that it was the first and last time WWE asked them to do it. You could say they were jinxed, couldn't you? Of course, Jeff would later wear a mask as alter ego Willow in TNA. Number 9, Billy Kidman. As a young man looking for any opportunity to make an impression in WCW, Billy Kidman was liable to do whatever his bosses asked of him during his early days with the promotion. So when Psychosis failed to show up for work as scheduled for the September 30th, 1996 edition of Nitro, reportedly because he didn't have his visa in order, WCW opted to stick Kidman under a mask instead. Teaming with Juventud Guerrera as El Técnico, he received a crack at WCW World Tag Team Champions, the Public Enemy. Coming out in what looked suspiciously like one of the costumes Ricky Steamboat and Shane Douglas used to wrestle in as Dos Hombres, El Técnico didn't stand a chance and was duly pummeled and pinned by Rocco Rock and Johnny Grunge. Also, it is very WCW that they ostensibly called him the babyface despite him playing a heel. Kidman didn't go back to the mask until a decade later, when he worked a WWE Dark Match in the summer of 2006 under a generic Japanese masked wrestler gimmick. El Gaijin, I presume. Number 8, Bayley. WWE Developmental is, or at least should be, a place for prospective WWE stars to experiment with their acts and try things that 9 times out of 10 might very well fail. Which is fine, of course, because you want to fine-tune things before you hopefully get called up to the main roster. WWE star Bayley was certainly trying to figure it all out when she made her NXT debut on a non-televised house show in January of 2013. Nodding to her Mexican-Americana heritage, the hugger put on a mask and wrestled as La Luchadora, teaming with Charlotte Flair and Paige to win a 6-woman tag bout. It might have been a winning start, but the mask, which had been borrowed from NXT trainer Sarah Del Rey, didn't work for the future women's champion. Bayley later noted that she couldn't see while wearing it, didn't know whether she should be speaking Spanish, and didn't feel totally comfortable performing lucha libre moves or sequences. The NXT trainers agreed with Bayley that the mask just didn't suit her, and it was dropped after this single outing. Number 7, The Undertaker. The Undertaker was famously forced to wear a protective Phantom of the Opera style mask when Mabel accidentally crushed his orbital bone in 1995. It was a cool look, even if it did originate due to an unfortunate situation. It was certainly a whole lot cooler than the time Taker previously wore a mask in his early years wrestling as Texas Red and the Punisher during his time in the world-class territory. Mark Calloway sure was green back then and was probably glad his face was obscured by the generic black design, considering how ropey some of his matches were. Despite being inexperienced, you could still see the raw talent and potential, and working under the mask gave Calloway a chance to try new things with a reasonable degree of anonymity. He also got to wrestle some major names as Texas Red and the Punisher, including Bruiser Brody, Kerry Von Erich, and Terry Gordy. Taking the mask off didn't lead to instant success for the future WWE Hall of Famer, as Mean Mark and Master of Pain weren't exactly world beaters, favors, but fame and fortune were right around the corner.
In that moment, you could say, thank God for Vince, bro. Thank God for Vince for a lot of things he did in the professional wrestling world. But to have Mark Calloway become the Undertaker was gold, bro. Cause it was said that Vince had this Undertaker character, but you don't know who should have that persona. Then you see an Undertaker, or Mark Calloway rather. I don't know if you seen him on WCW or he just seen him somewhere that he was a free agent, and he's like, yeah, you could be the guy, and then the rest is history. So that's pretty cool.
Number 6, Randy Savage. Everything about Randy Savage was recognizable, from his gravelly voice and ostentatious clothes to his unique walk and the way he moved in the ring. While trying to make it in baseball during the mid-1970s, Randy Poffo decided to follow in his father's footsteps and began wrestling for Eddie Graham's territory in Florida. Now, his contract with minor league outfit, the Cincinnati Reds, prohibited any other non-baseball physical activity, so to get around that, Randy discovered a little loophole. Put on a mask. Performing as the Spider, Poffo essentially worked as a job guy, but did tangle with notable names including Dominic DeNucci, Larry Sharp, and a young guy called Mitsu Yoshida, a fellow rookie who would go on to become a legend as Riki Choshu. Also, isn't it just a little bit ironic that Macho Man would later go on to star in the film Spider-Man, where as Bonesaw McGraw, he would take on Peter Parker's The Human Spider in a memorable scene. As soon as Savage's baseball dreams were over, he destroyed his bats, took off the mask, and began a career in sports entertainment in earnest. Number 5, Paul London and Shannon Moore. Don't worry if you're thinking, I'm pretty sure I saw Paul London wear a mask before, Adam. Because you did, many times, when London made his entrance with WWE Tag Team Champion partner Brian Kendrick. Prior to bagging the belts, however, London was low down in the cruiserweight pecking order, and when he wasn't grafting on Velocity or putting people over in squash matches well, he wasn't doing much, alright? But for one episode of SmackDown in 2004, Paul London was tasked with putting on a hood and portraying El Gran Luchador. Wearing the Mexican heavyweight title, which was the old WWE women's title belt with a red, white, and green flag slapped on it, El Gran Luchador was positively decimated by JBL before being turned inside out with a clothesline from hell. A couple of months later, JBL had won the WWE title and once again went up against El Gran Luchador in a champion versus champion bout. This time, however, the masked man was played by Shannon Moore, since this was the same night that London and Kidman won the tag straps. Now wearing a full bodysuit to conceal Moore's telltale tattoos, El Gran Luchador actually scored a count-out victory thanks to some classic lying, cheating, and stealing from Eddie Guerrero.
I don't remember this.
Number 4, Chris Jericho.
Must
Early
have been
in his
that
career,
forgettable.
Chris Jericho made a name for himself wrestling in Mexico. As Corazon de Leon, aka Lionheart, Jericho wrestled tons of guys who wore masks, though he himself didn't wear one while plying his trade south of the border. He did, however, mask up while wrestling in one of his other favored territories, Japan. Having wrestled for the smaller FMW and War promotions previously, Jericho jumped at the chance to work for the prestigious New Japan in 1997. The group, who had a working agreement with Jericho's employer WCW, wanted Jericho to come in as Super Liger, an evil incarnation of Jushin Liger. The idea was to build up to a big match between the two, but the Super Liger concept was abandoned immediately after the character's bomb of a debut inside the Tokyo Dome. According to Jericho, the suit was restrictive, he could barely see out of the mask, and to make matters worse, his opponent Koji Kanemoto clearly didn't want to be there, resulting in the match being a dud. Luckily for Y2J, New Japan were kind enough to bring him back later that same month, albeit without the mask. Number 3, Brad Armstrong. Brad Armstrong was routinely cited by people he had been in the ring with as one of the most talented wrestlers to ever lace up a pair of boots. A real wrestler's wrestler, Brad perhaps never quite achieved the level of success that matched his ability in the squared circle. WCW did try various characters with Armstrong, including the Candyman and Buzzkill, as well as 2 masked gimmicks in 1991. The first was Bad Street, originally known as Fantasia before WCW sussed that the Disney people might have a little bit of a problem with that. Partnering with the Fabulous Freebirds, Brad enjoyed the gimmick as the mask mask gave him a freedom to do and say things he could never dream of as a babyface. He also loved his next mask gimmick, Arachnaman. Now, if WCW feared legal repercussions from the Mickey Mouse people, I have absolutely no bloody idea what they expected Marvel to say about this. Very clearly a rip-off of Spider-Man, WCW's yellow and purple would-be superhero was shut down when Marvel predictably claimed copyright infringement, sending Arachnaman back to Web City. Yes, that is where he was actually billed as being from. Number 2, Bryan Danielson. Inspired to get into the wrestling business after watching the WCW cruiserweights of the mid to late 90s, Bryan Danielson enrolled in HBK's Texas Wrestling Academy in 1999. Michaels recognized Danielson's talent almost immediately, but warned his trainee that he would be fighting an uphill battle simply due to the fact that he was undersized by